Hello, and welcome to today's Pedestrian and Bicycle Information Center Livable Communities webinar. Today's webinar is titled Bike Sharing in the United States, State of the Practice and Guide to Implementation. And we will be speaking with RJ Eldridge and Mauricio Hernandez of Tool Design Group, Josh Moskowitz, Manager of the Capital Bikeshare, and Julia Diana, Manager of San Antonio Bikes. My name is James Gallagher, and I am the PBIC Communications Manager. I will be facilitating today's webinar. Attendees, if you can hear me, click the hand in the box in the upper right-hand corner of your screen to raise your hand so we can be sure our audience can hear us. Okay. Before we get started with today's webinar, I want to go over a few administrative details and the functionality of the webinar software. If for some reason your computer or web browser freezes during the webinar, please reload the website and log back into the program. You'll be able to rejoin the session. Please note that attendees will not be able to speak during the webinar. We do expect a large number of attendees on this call, so by muting your audio, it helps us to cut down on confusion and background noise. As an attendee, you have a control box in the upper right corner of your screen that collapses and expands by clicking the double arrows. Though you won't be able to speak, you will have the ability to ask questions by entering them in the question box. If you have a problem during the webinar, you may enter it here. I'll monitor these questions and respond to you if I am able. Questions pertaining to the presentation may be asked at any time in the question box, but will not be addressed until the end of the program when we have built in about 20 minutes for discussion period. Please feel free to ask those questions as we go along, and we'll get to them after the presentation. Also, when you exit the webinar, there's a very brief survey that will pop up. We would very much appreciate your feedback on our performance. Following today's webinar, you will receive a follow-up email. This email will be sent 1 to 2 days after the presentation and will include a link to download a printable certificate of attendance for 1.5 hours of instruction. If there are multiple attendees at your site, please forward this link to the other participants so that they can download and print the certificate with their name. This webinar has been submitted to AICP and may be approved for 1.5 CN credits. The Road Safety Academy, the training and education arm of the UNC Highway Safety Research Center, is a registered provider of CM credits. For more information on the Road Safety Academy, please visit www.rsa.unc.edu. For more information on future webinars or to view the archives from this webinar series or others, please visit www.walkinginfo.org/webinars. In addition to these webinars, PBIC offers 4 different in-person training courses to provide technical assistance to professionals and community members in developing pedestrian safety action plans and improving conditions for walking. These courses can be found at www.walkinginfo.org/training. In a moment, I'm going to turn the screen over to RJ Eldridge and Mauricio Hernandez for the feature presentation, Getting Started with Bikeshare. While they're getting set up with their slide presentation, I want to take a quick poll from the audience. Please let us know how many participants are viewing the webinar at your site. We'll give it another 30 seconds, and then we'll get started. All right, well, thank you for answering those questions. At this point, I'd like to welcome and thank RJ, Mauricio, Josh, and Julia for their presentation. Today. We'll take questions at the end. RJ and Mauricio, please take it from here.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Mauricio Hernandez, and I'm a transportation planner with the Tool Design Group, and I'm here with my colleague, RJ Eldridge, and we'll be talking a little bit about how bike sharing implementation is doing in the United States. We have been working with the Pedestrian and Bicycle Info and FHWA for the past couple of months, documenting what's going on with bike sharing, which programs are implementing what, and how they are implementing it. As a focus of the study, we started the study with two main reasons, basically. Because many communities out there were considering bike sharing or are considering bike sharing and are looking for more information on the why, the what, and the how to implement bike sharing programs. Additionally, we have received a lot of questions on how to get started or if they should get started. So additionally, we also have received questions because this is a fast-changing model not only here in the United States, but in Europe. Our study is mainly focused on urban bike sharing programs, and it documents lessons learned and best practices. Finally, we are geared towards transportation professionals and policymakers who are interested in implementing bike share programs in their jurisdiction. For this study, we actually recruited a few systems throughout the U.S., existing and upcoming, to ensure applicability to the broadest possible audience. We selected these different systems, 12 of them, in different cities, based on the size of the city, the size of the program, the geographic representation, basically where they are located in the United States, the technology used, the stage of implementation, and we also wanted to provide different perspectives from different stages in the planning period. So what is bike sharing? And we're just going to do a quick introduction on bike sharing. Basically, like I said, this study is focusing on jurisdiction-wide programs. And we actually define them as point-to-point transportation for small, short trips around half a mile to 3 miles. And in these programs, the jurisdictions, the local jurisdictions, play a leading role either by initiating, funding, administering, or operating the implementation of the program. Around January this year, we counted around 30 systems in the U.S. that are either operational or in the planning stages. We have received news that there are more upcoming ones, and we are just waiting for the newest ones and the biggest ones coming up over the summer. We divided the number of cities that we studied into 3 tiers. The large systems, which were made up of 800 to 1,200 bikes, and 150 to 90, around 100 stations. These 3 are the ones that we consider the large systems, not based on the size of the city, but the size of the program itself. The medium ones were Hugway, Denver B-Cycle, and San Antonio B-Cycle, which, as you can see, have different modes of implementation, have different business models, and different service areas. Finally, the small systems, Boulder, Spartanburg, and Dot Wheels, we actually worked with them, and Dot Wheels is a representative for, as you can see, it was included as a university study so that they could give us a different perspective on what's going on out there. Once again, these numbers are as of January 2012. So one of the first questions that a city might ask or a jurisdiction might ask is, why bike sharing? And bike sharing is important for increased mobility, basically to help bridge last mile trips for, in terms of transportation, to increase mode share by increasing the visibility of bicycling. As you probably know already, there are some social benefits as increased access and reduces transportation costs, as this is a very, very affordable way of travel. And there are also some environmental benefits that include the curbing of carbon emissions and the reduced traffic congestions throughout jurisdictions. Right here we actually have 4 different steps, program components within the study. We basically studied the why, which is the planning, the how, which we defined as the business model, the with what, which is related to funding, and the when, which is related to how to operate a system. Within those 4 different components, there are subcomponents that make up the managing of the system. It is important to note that we wanted to put these out there because we wanted everybody to understand that it's not only putting bicycles out there. You actually have to include a lot of these issues and a lot of these components in implementing a bike sharing program. So some of the cost elements, we kind of broke it down into 3 big cost elements: the planning, the startup, and the sustainability of the program. In the program planning, one of the biggest components is the procurement, which can be a big factor in terms of funding availability. In terms of program startup, we focus a lot in the marketing before, during, and after the launch of the system so that you can promote the system as much as possible within your local jurisdiction. In addition, we also talk to different jurisdictions about how their siting and permitting within the jurisdiction were a little bit difficult and how they dealt with those difficulties. Finally, in terms of sustaining the program, we looked into advertising, marketing, redistribution, and any kind of additional customer service issues that jurisdictions might have gone through. So one of the big picture items, how much does it cost? And these are approximate annual operating costs as well as equipment installation costs. You can see the numbers. And in terms of installation of bicycle stations, there are 2 types of technology right now, the AC powered and the solar powered. To this end, AC powered tend to be cheaper to purchase or more affordable to purchase, but in the long run can be a little bit more expensive to install because of additional infrastructure and any management costs. Furthermore, these systems that have AC power are also a little bit less flexible in terms of moving them around.
Okay, this is RJ Eldridge at Tool Design Group, and I'm going to pick it up here and talk a little bit. We've gone through some of the elements that might be included in the planning phase, so now we're going to talk about how different bike share systems across the country are paying for their programs. And what we're seeing is that there are 4 main sources of revenue or sources of funding that folks are using. There's federal funding, and I'll go into a little bit more detail on some of the DOT funds and how they can be used in a couple slides. But then private grants. Several programs are partnering with large organizations, typically oriented around public health care, that are helping to underwrite and support the bike share program. Customer fees are a significant source of revenue. This is both the annual membership as well as short-term or 1-day or 2-day membership passes. And those fees, and in addition to those, there's actual user fees. Most systems offer the first 30 minutes to 45 minutes are free. But after that, there's an additional cost, and this is designed to encourage turnover in the use of the bikes. And then lastly, there's advertising and sponsorship, and this can include large manufacturers, large corporations that may be purchasing branding rights or naming rights for the system. It includes logos and branding on the equipment, around the community, on the project website, etc. But the important lesson is that nobody's using one source of revenue. You have to be very creative and entrepreneurial, and the programs that we've partnered with or been working with on this analysis that we're working on have been very creative in pulling together multiple sources. So DOT has 2 primary agencies that are being used or funding bike share programs right now. Federal Highway Administration, formula grants such as CMAQ and transportation enhancements, those are being used by several of the systems to help with the purchase of bike share equipment as well as some of the operating costs. Then there are discretionary grant programs such as the recent round of Tiger grants. And other sources of funds are the Non-Motorized Transportation Pilot Program. FTA, there are a couple of opportunities through their system as well. The Bus Livability and Transit and Parks Program, Montgomery County, Maryland, is going to be using the Job Access Reverse Commute, or JARC funds, to help underwrite their joining the Capital Bike Share system in the Washington, D.C. area. But the one significant difference between these two, and it's something that is I know is currently being discussed at USDOT, is some of the differences between these two funding sources. FTA funds can be used to purchase the stations, but not the bikes, because their bicycles are classified as single occupancy vehicles. Federal Highway Administration funds, there's a little bit more flexibility in terms of how those funds can be used. On a sort of bigger picture scale, other considerations when using federal funding are just eligibility. Nonprofit organizations may not be eligible to apply for some of these funds, so how they actually reach the bike share program is a consideration. Just the time it takes when using federal funds, and folks out there who are familiar with using federal funds for a wide variety of bicycle and pedestrian projects may be familiar with some of the administrative requirements there, and this certainly holds true here. There are Buy America provisions, which stipulate that products made of steel or iron need to be manufactured here in the United States. And with some of these funding programs, not all of them, you're limited on what you can do for O&M, what you can use for O&M costs. So moving forward, funding is one element, a very important element, and then the next closely related element is just the business model. And through our research, we identified three, sort of a spectrum of business models that relate to the local government's involvement, level of involvement in the bike share program, and the sort of how it is operated on a day-to-day basis. And there are several factors that lead into which model is explained, and I'll get into the models in a second. But key things to consider are just where's the funding coming from, the jurisdiction's institutional capacity. Can they even take on operating a large business such as this, like a bike share program? Liability concerns, political, just the political reality and the perception of making large investments in new transportation modes right now in some places can be politically untenable. And then there may be regulations that actually restrict governments from being involved in enterprises that involve revenue. So again, we have three types here: the for-profit business, nonprofit organizations, and then jurisdiction-owned and managed. And it's important to emphasize that these really should be viewed along a continuum or a spectrum. No one system that we examine fit cleanly into any of these different models. But the for-profit business, these generally are independent businesses that are run much like any other business, with the goal of generating a profit for the owners of the company. Nonprofit organizations, these are generally entities that may be created specifically for the purpose of running a bike share program. Alternatively, they may be organizations that already existed that have now taken bike share as part of their mission, but they're separate from the municipalities, although they tend to have a close working relationship. And lastly, there's the jurisdiction-owned and managed, and these are systems where the local jurisdiction actually has a financial stake. They may own the equipment, or at least a part of the equipment, and subsequently are more involved in the program. And that last point is a pretty important consideration. The more skin you have in the game, so to speak, the more financial investment a jurisdiction has in the program, generally the larger role you'll have and the more influence you'll be able to, a jurisdiction will be able to exert in sort of the day-to-day operations and programming of the Bikeshare system. So we're going to talk a little bit more about planning and kind of what are the steps. And again, there's not one clear path that everybody took, but there's a general process that we've summarized here, and we're going to walk folks through these. But first, it's really conducting a feasibility study, making sure that Bikeshare is even appropriate in a particular community. And this includes several different elements, identifying the potential demand or the quote-unquote the market for Bikeshare, figuring out if it does make sense, where is it going to happen, what is the service area for the Bikeshare program. And it's important to focus on at least your initial phases in areas that you're going to have the highest success. Because like any large infrastructure investment, we want to make sure that these are being used, they're seen by the community as a valuable investment. Identification of the business model, we talked a little bit about that, thinking about the costs and funding sources, selecting which type of technology and equipment. Mauricio spoke earlier about the difference between solar-powered versus wired stations, and there's reasons to go with either. And actually, there are some systems out there that have a combination of solar-powered stations and wired. Then you need to think about phasing, and many systems right now are starting with a fairly small footprint with goals to expand to a much larger service area. And then the pricing, making sure that it's competitive and affordable and really is going to attract ridership. Once these things are done, then it's identifying the vendor and the operator. And this is typically conducted through a request for proposals or a solicitation, much like many other procurement efforts. And these requests for proposals will stipulate many of the conditions and the goals for the program, as well as the proposed business arrangement that the city wants the program to operate under. And then once it's underway, thinking about program administration and kind of getting things up and running. One of the key things that we found through our study is really understanding the station siting requirement. Figuring out the market area or the service area is sort of at the 30,000-foot level. But once you get down to street level, you need to figure out where these actual bike stations are going to go. And the footprint is significant, especially in constrained urban areas. You need to consider impacts on sidewalk access. Some places are putting their Bikeshare stations on street, and that may involve removing on-street parking. Some places are putting them in relation to ventilation systems for underground utilities. So the weight of the stations and the racks is important. And it's not just the physical footprint of the station itself, but also people need to be able to get the bikes in and out of the station. And then what are the common concerns or issues that we heard from several Bikeshare program operators was that the programs have been very successful, and they're just physically running out of space to expand some of their high-capacity, high-volume stations. So that's another consideration is not only the initial installation, but future expansion area in case the program, or to accommodate success. So implementation, you figured out the service hours. Is it going to be a 24-hour program? Some programs run throughout the year. Others close down over the winter, and a lot of it depends on precipitation and kind of seasonal climate. Making sure that before you launch your system, you're generating buzz. It's critical to develop energy around the Bikeshare program, and there's lots of great models out there and great examples of people really creating almost a movement to lead up to the launch. And then once the program is launched, keeping it sustained, it requires constant care and feeding. Use of social media is critical, and again, lots of good examples of that. Great thing for the planners out there is just the amount of data that Bikeshare is generating in terms of rider characteristics, riding patterns, where people are, travel patterns, where people are going to and from, time of day, et cetera. It's just an incredible resource of information, and this can be used to improve the Bikeshare program as well as for other general planning exercises. So I think this is specifically an area where you're going to see a lot of great research in the upcoming years. And one of the things that every operator we've talked to has said is you really want to make sure you're engaging your community to constantly fine-tune and improve the program. Safety is a very big and important consideration for Bikeshare. And one of the things I'm really happy to report is that to date, Bikeshare's programs have very low rates of reported bike crashes, actually less than the general bicycling population. So far, there are no programs in operation that require the use of helmets in the U.S., although some are going to be coming online very soon. But all programs strongly encourage helmet use, and several have several programs in place or initiatives in place to provide free helmets or sell helmets at a reduced rate. Again, very entrepreneurial approach to promoting safety. It also, I think, again, generates energy and excitement around the program. One of the theories about the safety record for Bikeshare is that the bikes themselves tend to be heavier and slower. Riders are sitting upright so that they have better visibility and they may be more visible to drivers. Again, there hasn't been a whole lot of research on this yet, but I see this as an area where you're going to have more investigation. Liability is another concern I know several municipalities have as they're getting into Bikeshare, and there's some key things that folks can do or that programs can do to limit their liability. There's no way to guarantee that you'll never be sued, but certainly to limit your risk. First and foremost is to maintain the equipment and infrastructure. Bikes are in good operating order. They have lights, reflectors, tail lights, bells, etc., just to make sure that the cyclist is safe and is on safe equipment. Rental agreements, whether it's the annual memberships or it's the one-day, one-time use, include waivers in the rental agreements so that the rider acknowledges what they're about to become involved in. All of the programs that we've worked with are very aggressive in educating users, whether it's at the point of pickup at the Bikeshare station itself and information on the kiosk. Some are partnering with local bicycle safety organizations, bicycle advocacy organizations to provide bicycle safety training, and then on their websites there are very useful instructions on bicycle safety. Also, some organizations are pursuing partnerships, and this may be one of the reasons to promote the or to choose not to do a jurisdiction-owned Bikeshare is partnering with other organizations that assume part of the risk. Definitely having insurance for the Bikeshare program, I think that goes without saying. And because the local laws vary from state to state, city to city, it's important to work with local attorneys to make sure that you're crafting a program that really protects the operator, the municipality, or whoever is involved with the program. And we're excited to report that to date, just the tremendous success across all sizes of programs. You know, they're growing very quickly, exceeding ridership expectations, and really has been a phenomenon that's sweeping across the country. And one of the things that we've noticed is that Bikeshare is attracting people beyond the sort of quote-unquote typical bicyclist, and if, in terms of gender, age, and heritage, it's really expanding the complexion and range of people that you see on bicycles. And I think it's important to talk about small bike share programs too, because there's this sense out there, I think, that the one metric of success for bike share is that we're growing, we're expanding, we're adding new stations, and that's not necessarily true. I like to profile the example of Spartanburg, where we have a small 2-station program, 14 bikes, but they are achieving their goals of promoting community health, educating the community about bicycling, and really increasing the awareness of bicycling in the Spartanburg and the surrounding region. So kind of went through the ways of evaluating success, but it's important when you start your program that you do lay out some of these metrics so that you have a basis to evaluate it on and help support continued investment of the program. Here's a list of some of the programs that are coming online now. We understand that Chattanooga and Kansas City are both active, so this is a slide that I think will constantly be evolving, but as Mauricio said at the beginning, it's a very fast changing program and a lot of excitement around this. And I just want to take one quick minute to point out a particular issue in bike share that I know there's a lot of interest in, social equity. So next Thursday there is going to be a webinar put on by Federal Transit Administration and the National Center for Transit Research at the University of Southern Florida on social equity and bike share. I encourage everyone to log on to find out more about this important issue. So with that, I just want to say thank you, and I guess we'll turn it back over. You can hand it on to Josh Moskowitz.
Thank you, RJ and Mauricio. Before I pass this over to Josh, I want to launch one more poll question, so if everyone could please answer this, I'd really appreciate it. Also, I've got several questions about whether the slides will be posted online. They will be. They'll be available in a few days on www.walkinginfo.org/webinars. Also, we have a Bikeshare listserv that we've developed. If you're interested in joining that, you can email me at james@hsrc.unc.edu, and I will add you to that listserv. And as soon as we're done with this poll, I will pass this over to Josh. About 10 more seconds. All right, Josh, I'm handing the computer to you. Thank you very much.
Thanks. And thanks again to RJ and Mauricio for all of the work that they've been doing. I can tell you that Chris Holben, my colleague who also runs the program, and myself receive a ton of calls from interested cities looking to launch bike share programs every day, every week, and I think RJ and Mauricio's work is really going to be fantastic in terms of just having one cohesive, unified overview of the bike share systems in the country.
Hey Josh, sorry to interrupt you. Could you hit show my screen on your screen? You should have had a pop-up window that came up, and you can do that. There you go. Thank you very much. Great. Good to go. Thank you.
So Capital Bike Share at a glance. Capital Bike Share is a joint transit system operating in Washington, D.C., in all 8 wards, all 4 quadrants, along with Arlington County and now the city of Alexandria. And the system, as RJ mentioned, is government-owned. So each of the jurisdictions own all of the equipment, the capital, the bikes, the stations, etc. We launched on September 20th, 2010, with 110 stations and 1,100 bikes. And DC was actually the home to the first bike sharing system in North America. We had a precursor program called Smart Bike, where we had 10 stations and 110 bikes, essentially located in the major nodes of Washington, D.C., and we got to a point where we essentially reached capacity. And the system was operated by Clear Channel Outdoor as part of our bus shelter contract. We wanted to go in a different direction and expand the system, and we were able to join with Arlington County and create the Capital Bikeshare program. The system runs 365 days a year, weather permitting, and it operates 24 hours and 7 days per week. After 17 months of operation, we've actually expanded to 1,450 plus bikes at 155 solar-powered docking stations due to the system's success and popularity. We are currently the largest bike sharing system in the entire country. The system is operated by Alta Bicycle Share, and we use public bicycle share company equipment, which the company is located in Montreal. Alta Bicycle Share, as I'm sure many of you are aware, also operates in Boston, and they had the New York City contract as well as the Chicago contract, and both programs are looking to launch this summer. Capital Bikeshare essentially complements other transportation modes and works best in dense urban areas. What we've found after 17 plus months of operation is that Capital Bikeshare is a transit system. That's why we created it, and it's really the data has really borne that out. Our peak of the peak usage mirrors Metro Bus, all of the existing transit options in the district, where the peak of the peak rush in terms of trip usage is 7 to 9 a.m. Monday through Friday, and then from 5 to 7 p.m. In the evening. Of course, we need the requisite funding in order to not only launch the system, but also to continue to operate it. The Phase 1 portion of Capital Bikeshare for the District of Columbia was funded by $6.4 million from the Congestion Mitigation Air Quality Improvement Fund, which is from the Federal Highways Administration. The Arlington portion of Capital Bikeshare was funded by approximately $800,000 from a combination of state, county, and private sector funds in roughly equal thirds. Some of those private sector funds were from the business improvement districts in Crystal City. Subsequent funding for expansion has been primarily with CMAQ funds for both DC and Arlington. And in addition to that, because we've been so successful financially, we've generated more than $2 million so far in user and membership revenue. We've actually been able to spend some of that revenue on purchasing additional capital equipment. So more stations, more bikes, more B-plates, and more docks. Just in terms of the associated costs, a 19-dock, 10-bike station is approximately $55,000. The per bike cost is approximately $1,300, and the annual O&M fee per station is $23,000. O&M for a particular station includes bike rebalancing, station and bike maintenance, and a 24/7, 365 days a year call center and website. A majority of that funding is spent on rebalancing the bikes. Alta Bicycle Share rebalances the bikes 20 hours a day, and they rebalance the bikes essentially 365 days a year and 7 days a week. The bike itself really is meant for bike sharing. It comes equipped with front and rear lights and fenders, a step-through frame, an RFID component to track beginning and ending station destinations, a basket, safety messages on the head cap, an adjustable seat post, 3 gears, and a bell. It's designed for utilitarian usage, so we simply wanted to be able to offer the bikes to anyone who wanted to ride it, as long as they're 16 years of age. That is the cutoff point for Capital Bikeshare. And after 17 months of usage and more than 1.8 million rides, one of the things that I'm just really, really impressed with and amazed at is how well they've held up. I've ridden them more than 600 times so far, and just in the last couple of months, I've just been very, very impressed with how well they've held up, considering in the summertime these bikes are ridden about 5 times a day per bike. The station itself consists of a kiosk, mat frame, solar panel, and a variable number of docks. We have stations that are as small as 11 docks, and we have stations that are as large as 39 docks. And that's really just based on the demand and usage patterns that we've seen so far. One of the great things about the stations is that they can be expanded or contracted based on usage trends and patterns. In the district, we've actually expanded 25 existing stations from as small as 4 extra docks for a particular station to as large as 18 extra docks, just based on demand and usage once again. We've also contracted several stations due to lack of usage. The station installation does not require any excavation or construction work. One of the drawbacks of Smart Bike was that we had to wait approximately 4 months for the utility work to finish. And so literally these stations can be put on the ground and function within 3 hours. And the bikes can be accessed at the station by a member key or a credit card. So if you're an annual or a monthly member, you use a key fob to access the system. And if you are a 1-day or 3-day member, you access the system using your credit card, and the kiosk will spit out a code, and the code you can use for one trip, and then you can continue to use different codes throughout the day if you'd like. Just some statistical highlights that I'm very proud of after 17 plus months of operation. In 17 plus months, there have been a total of 1.86 million capital bike share trips, an average of 110,000 trips per month. A total of 1.8 million miles have been traversed on our bikes. The busiest station, which is at DuPont Circle, has had more than 140,000 beginning and ending trips, so an average of approximately 9,000 trips per month. In 12 months of operation, actually on our first birthday, which was September 20th, 2011, or first anniversary, we celebrated the 1 millionth trip, and current projections have us reaching the next 1 million trips in 8 months. So we should reach 2 million trips by the middle of May of this year. In the last year, Alta Bicycle Share has rebalanced. That's picking up and dropping off the bikes, so picking up bikes from full stations and bringing them to empty stations more than 24,000 times per month, or 800 times per day. Just in terms of what usage looks like throughout the last 17 months, March of 2012 was actually our best month. We had approximately 165,000 trips, which is 20,000 more trips than we had in June 2011, which was formerly the month with the greatest number of trips. If we compare ridership between March 2011 and March 2012, we actually experienced an increase in ridership of 157%. And if you keep in mind that the average temperature in March 2012 was 56 degrees and the average temperature in June 2011 was 79 degrees, I think we've got a lot of room for exponential growth this year in terms of ridership. I think last year was sort of our pilot, if you will, and I think that this year will sort of be the barometer for what the usage will look like as we go out into the future. And just one other aside, for March, we also had our record-setting day, which was a day in which we saw 8,300 trips, or approximately 6.6 trips per bike. Membership at a glance, we currently have 16,767 active annual members. Cumulatively, so since the system started in September 2010, we've had more than 20,000 annual members. And as the weather has warmed up here in Washington, D.C., and as we've expanded, we've had more than 1,500 new memberships in the last 3 weeks, or approximately 500 new members per week. Casual membership is something that I think D.C. Has been sort of a leader in. We've had more than 117,000 24-hour members who are mainly tourists or visitors to our region, which is more than 3 times the number that Minneapolis has had in approximately the same amount of time, with essentially the same amount of stations and bikes. And I think the district's the fact that the district has become more and more of a tourist destination, coupled with our decision to aggressively enhance our bicycle infrastructure. We now have 55 miles of bike lanes. We've become simply just a more and more attractive place for visitors to the region to bike. In July of 2011 alone, we had more than 13,000 casual members. A ride duration for our annual and monthly members is vastly different than it is for our casual members, our tourists and visitors to the region. 98% of all annual and monthly trips are less than 30 minutes. There's very, very little diversity or range in the amount of time annual and monthly members actually use our bikes. It really reinforces the idea that bike sharing for our residents is meant for short, quick trips. So essentially, our annual members, the only fee that they pay throughout the year is the $75 annual membership fee. They really, it's very, very rare that they pay any sort of usage fees. For our casual member ridership, there's a much greater diversity of time on the bike for that group. The average duration for a casual member ride is approximately 44 minutes, and as you can see from the pie chart, there is quite a bit of diversity in how long our casual members tend to ride. I think one of the things that I'm most proud of, and as well as Mauricio should be, is the creation of the Capital Bikeshare dashboard. Mauricio, when he was our intern, was instrumental in getting this off the ground, and it's essentially a way for us to provide all of this wonderful data that RJ was talking about that we receive each month in terms of ridership, membership, fleet performance, and customer service to the public. It really is a reflection of our agency's commitment to transparency and our willingness to engage a very, very intelligent community. The Bikeshare dashboard is really the only one that I know of in the entire world when it comes to bicycle sharing systems. It's received considerable praise from our members, academics, and other cities seeking to start their own programs. In addition to the dashboard, we also release quarterly trip information, which has been analyzed and manipulated by our members. And it's just another way just another opportunity for them to have even more data and information available at their fingertips. And I can say that just some of the deliverables, the products that they put together have actually helped us as we've looked to place other stations. Just the data analysis that they have done has been wonderful. Bikeshare Partnerships. Currently, Capital Bikeshare has corporate partnerships with 32 different entities ranging from local universities, congressional offices, federal agencies, large corporations here in the district, and nonprofits. In late 2011, we formed a partnership with Bank on DC, providing $50 memberships to individuals to become banked. and who open up a debit or credit account with 2 financial institutions in the district, United Bank and the District Government Employees Federal Credit Union. The reason why we decided to do this was because just essentially some bare bone facts, 30% of district residents are unbanked, and the only way that you can use our system is using a debit or a credit card. It's essentially our insurance system if a bike goes missing or there are usage fees. And so we've been able to partner with Bank on DC, which is a financial umbrella organization in the district, to provide discounted memberships for individuals to become banked. 3 weeks ago, we entered into another partnership with Back on My Feet, offering $50 memberships to 10 Back on My Feet participants, homeless individuals who receive job training, financial literacy courses, and access to academic courses through Back on My Feet. Back on My Feet also anticipates saving about $7,000 in transportation costs through the partnership. The way it works is they provide a stipend to these individuals who meet certain goals, who meet certain metrics, and one of those, part of that stipend is actually for transit. It's usually Metro Rail or Metro Bus, but just through these 10 individuals, they project that they'll be able to save about $7,000 for the year. In addition, we've sold 500 24-hour memberships and provided 60 helmets to Kimpton hotels to distribute to their guests. This summer, we're actually looking to partner with a host of other hotels to provide their guests with this benefit. It's just part and parcel of our commitment to safety, especially for those casual users who come to the district not knowing that they're going to bike, but end up using one of our bikes. Having the helmet available, I think, is it's just going to be a wonderful asset for them.
Yeah, I'm not
as they bike
it,
through
right?
the District of Columbia.
I hope it came with directions.
And finally, I just wanted to talk a little bit about our latest initiatives. As part of our program's commitment to safety, Capital Bikeshare now sells helmets on our website at a very deducted rate. It's about $16, and this is offered for purchase to new and renewing members. Through about 2 or 3 weeks, we've sold 70 helmets so far, which is just fantastic. In addition, we've also added safety decals to the headset of 1,200 bikes. You can see the one of the models, one of the safety decals on the right-hand side. The 10 variations recommend that users wear a helmet, strongly discourage riding against traffic, and remind users to obey all traffic laws. And in order to reach those residents who might be unable to afford the upfront cost of an annual membership, we now offer the option of a monthly installment plan towards an annual membership. So it's a $7 a month cost. This is just another way that we might be able to reach those who might not have the financial wherewithal to afford a $75 membership up front. And so, again, it just keeps, it reinforces our commitment to providing a transit alternative option to all of our citizens in the district, Arlington, and Alexandria. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Josh. We will now pass the screen over to Julia Deanna. Julia, are you there?
I am. Can you hear me?
I can.
Great.
I've just given you the screen.
Okay.
You may need to click.
Yeah.
There you go.
Got it?
Got it.
All righty. Good afternoon. My name is Julia Deanna, and I'm with the City of San Antonio's Office of Environmental Policy. Today I'm going to tell you the story of how our city, our very big city, is progressing from a severely lacking bike culture to being well on our way. And it took investing in some game changers, and implementing a bike share system was one of those game changers. So just to kind of frame where we are, and these statistics that you see on your screen are from a couple of years ago, but this is where we were. at the time that we started thinking about this. We have a population of over 1.2 million, and our jurisdiction is 368.6 square miles, so we're quite spread out. Among our peer cities, the 50 largest cities in the U.S., we ranked 45th in bicycling to work at 0.1%. We had 0.4 miles of facilities per square mile in San Antonio, which is the average comparatively is 1.6.
I'm sorry, Julia. I'm sorry to interrupt. We're not seeing your presentation on your screen. We're seeing everything else.
Okie dokie. Let me just see if I can. Can you see my screen right now?
You can. We just don't see your presentation.
Okay.
We see the GoToMeeting screen.
All right. Did you send me the note to switch over?
I did. It's on your screen. We don't see the PowerPoint presentation. If you just pull that up, we should see it.
Okay, I had it on full screen, so let me try this again. And you still cannot see it?
No.
Okay.
I've got your slides. I'll pull them up on my screen, and we'll work it from there. Thanks, screen.
Okay, are you going to flip the pages then?
Certainly. Just tell me when to hit the.
Okay.
When to hit.
All right, we're on the main page. If you'll flip to page 2.
Julia, we're there on page 2.
Okay. So I was going over some of the statistics where we are in the city at the moment. And they're up on your screen now. Among the 50 largest cities in the U.S., we were basically ranking in the bottom, real bottom of the top 50. So you can see some of those statistics. And at the very bottom bullet point, I wanted to point out that over 2/3 of our population is considered obese or overweight. So that actually turned out to be an opportunity when it came to funding, and I'll touch a little bit more on that in a second. Go ahead and switch. The city was the recipient of 2 large grants, $12.7 million from the Department of Energy for energy efficiency measures and $15.6 million from the Centers for Disease Control for obesity prevention programs. And as luck would have it, it gave us the opportunity to start a Bikeshare program in earnest. So from those 2 grants, a little over $1.2 million was earmarked for this Bikeshare project. But that's actually not the budget we started out with because we really didn't know how much we needed to spend or could spend. This is kind of the budget that we ended up with. We also thought that an innovative way to make bike sharing work in San Antonio might have been to create a model whereby bike sharing, which could be a lower revenue producing business, might be supported or subsidized through bike rentals and tours, which might sound counterintuitive or might sound like it's competing with the main business. But we have a set of characteristics in our city that we thought might let that work. Namely, we have a thriving downtown and tourist population, and we are marketing our system not only to residents but tourists as well. So as it turned out, the respondent who won the job proposed just that model through a partnership with B-Cycle and Bike World. And Bike World is a top locally owned and operated full-service bicycle retailer. So they had already had boots on the ground, and they already had the experience of the retail side of the business. Go ahead and switch. After the award was made and contract negotiations began, how did we get started? Well, we made an early map and plotted out preferred and alternate locations of the stations. The sites are close together and are places that people would want to ride a bike to, such as the Central Library, which you see in this picture, the San Antonio Museum of Art, and, of course, the Alamo. Some of the stations are on private property, but others are on public property. So each created its own set of issues that we dealt with. But in creating the preliminary network, we wanted a few alternatives in case problems with approvals or permitting arose. And then we began making phone calls. Most of our original proposals became reality, though in some cases we moved down a block or around a corner due to site constraints or stakeholder concerns. So here's a lesson learned that's illustrated on this slide here. Is scale renderings, such as what you see here, are an invaluable tool for communicating with property owners, because we found that they really can't appreciate the scale of what we might be talking about unless, especially on their site, even if they've seen it before somewhere else. So once the general locations were settled, we did more thorough site analysis with our vendor, who was B-Cycle, and the property owners. We took measurements, checked for cellular reception, and noted the feasibility of doing a solar station as well. And then we began the attempt to match the station size to each site and to customize the configuration. Go ahead. This is an image of La Villita, or Little Village. You can see the before and after with the rendering. I put this slide in here because this turned out, believe it or not, to be one of our most controversial sites, because that wall that you see in the picture is a historic wall that borders a historic piece of our city. And probably the number one thing that we had to take care of in this process was getting approval from our Historic Design and Review Commission. This area of town is also where Fiesta is held every year. And if you flip ahead, you can see what's going on in our city right now. It's an annual 10-day affair of partying, and the streets are closed, and we have B-Cycle stations in and around Fiesta. Go ahead. So back to the project. Procurement from start to finish is a lengthy process due to rules and regulations related to government processes, both at the municipal and the federal level. So we issued a request for qualifications rather than a request for proposals, because at the time we neither had established a budget nor knew exactly what we wanted to, the respondents to respond with. And because Bikeshare is somewhat experimental, a lot of what-ifs were asked and different scenarios were explored. The resulting contract grew out of collaborative conversations with the team that was chosen and with city staff. And in our case, the City of San Antonio actually owns the assets, but San Antonio Bikeshare, which is a nonprofit that was set up specifically for this purpose, is the sole operator and maintainer of the bike stations for at least 3 years. At the end of the 3-year initial contract period, everything is subject to renegotiation. I would say the takeaway from this part of the process is to make sure and write a flexible document within the confines of agency legal requirements and funding stipulations, and allow plenty of time for review and comment. Federal money, as most of you in the audience probably already know, comes with a lot of strings. Go ahead. San Antonio's wealth of historic assets are what make it one of the most visited and authentic cities in the nation, and we're known for having a strong record of conservation, as I mentioned earlier. So getting that approval through the Conservation Society and the Historic Design and Review Commission were essential steps in our process, and so we acquired letters of support from well-respected individuals and organizations that helped us not only build a network of support, but gave the commissioners the confidence they needed to proceed with approval. They saw that it was a popular concept, and so it was, let's go for it. Ultimately, everyone agreed that the benefits of the program, which obviously are reducing traffic congestion, improving air quality, and that it's a fun and affordable way for residents and tourists to get around downtown, are actually enhancements to those very cultural assets that we're trying to protect. So after historic approval, we started on the permitting phase of the project, which included gathering and creating the necessary documents and drawings for construction and electrical permit applications. Also, San Antonio Bikeshare formalized legal agreements with private property owners. And again, the takeaways here are that not everyone thinks Bikeshare is a great idea, especially when they first hear about it. So it's important to have a case and now that we have some statistics from other cities around the country, it's becoming easier and easier. But you still may find that permitting bike share stations is a novelty and probably doesn't fit within existing municipal guidelines. Finally, keeping lines of communication open is essential. And we had weekly site prep meetings established, and we also allowed a conference call in so that when we were out on site or whatever, we could still touch base week in, week out, and make sure the project was progressing smoothly. Please go ahead. So here's our system. We now have 230 bikes located at 23 stations at popular origins and destinations downtown. We just added 3 additional sites last week. So the former slides that said that we were a 200 bike station are just slightly outdated. We're now up to 230. Our kiosks are customer friendly and accessible in both English and Spanish. The bikes themselves are theft resistant and equipped with GPS devices. And the kiosks are graffiti and vandal resistant. They're also made in the U.S. But before we got here, we still had to do a lot of educating, primarily about the concept of bike sharing, that bikes are to be used for short distances and for short amounts of time. We found that the San Antonio B-Cycle dedicated website has been a great go-to resource, which includes a how-to video, how to actually use the systems to alleviate that first-time fear of not being able to actually figure it out. It also includes maps with dock and bike availability. And also, each user can have an individual profile page that shows how many miles he or she has ridden, calories burned, and the carbon offset that they've generated. In addition, there's a smartphone app that people can download as well. Go ahead. Here are some more details about how we've structured our system in San Antonio. We're targeting our system as both an amenity for residents and tourists, and we have revenue coming in primarily from memberships, advertising, and corporate sponsorships. Raising operating capital will be an ongoing pursuit of the 501c3, which is called San Antonio Bikeshare. And we also believe that if we reach about 350 bikes at 35 stations, we will have built the downtown core into a really viable system that will satisfy all the places that we want to be at this point in time. Go ahead. Here are some more program details, just to show you exactly what we're doing. Our annual memberships are $60 a year. You can purchase a week pass for $24 or a day pass at $10. We also use some of our grant money to subsidize first-year annual passes, and we offer them at $25 or $30 for about the first year to city employees, but also to special corporate promotions, et cetera, just to get some buy-in and to get people used to the system, and then make them fans going forward. The bikes are adjustable. They're designed to adjust to users from 5'2" to 6'4". They have baskets and built-in bike locks. And then B-Cycle trained local mechanics who service and redistribute the bikes daily. Please go ahead. As for operations and maintenance, running a bike share system is a complex undertaking with many moving parts. So every day, San Antonio B-Cycle staff is working on the website, customer service issues, operating hours, bike maintenance, kiosk maintenance, marketing the program, promoting the program, and redistributing the bikes. And I will note that our operating hours were not 24/7 as of yet. We are 5 a.m. to 11 p.m. After 11 p.m., you can still turn a bike in, but you can't check one out. The system goes to sleep. Forward. Bringing in private sector dollars will be the key not only to maintaining the existing system, but also to grow it, obviously. So as awareness expands, we are hoping so will the literal buy-in to the system. To date, we've been fortunate with positive press coverage. One of our greatest leveraging tools has been the tie-in with public health. And a number of stories have aired about users who have lost weight, changed their lifestyles, and have become cheerleaders for active transportation just for joining B-Cycle. So we've started calling it a gateway drug. It's been a really rewarding aspect of the program that I don't think we were concentrating on when we first started out, but it's the CDC money, the Centers for Disease Control grant that we had, helped us emphasize and capitalize on some of the other efforts in the city, and that we were able to highlight as well. So a funny side note is one journalist calculated that the number of cumulative calories that had been burned after we were about 9 months into the program was the equivalent of 18,000 crispy beef tacos. Quite a few. Go ahead. We operate a central hub. It's kind of really in the heart of the system. And it's a bricks and mortar symbol of San Antonio B-Cycle, and it also serves as a one-stop resource for questions, directions, helmet checkout free of charge, or you can buy one. You can get water, stock up on accessories, and there we also offer rentals and tour sign-ups. So for people that realize, oh, they're not going to be able to or not want to redock their bikes every 30 minutes, they can come into the shop and get different bikes, or maybe it's a family that needs bikes for younger and older people. They have another option at their disposal. Go ahead. After we just celebrated our first anniversary in March, and we're proud of our results. Remember, we're coming from a city that is fairly new to bicycling as a form of transportation. So after 1 year, our B-Cycle members have taken over 32,000 trips, logged 123,674 alternative transportation miles. They've cumulatively burned over 5.4 million calories, and they've offset 129,069 pounds of carbon. In this picture, you might note this is one of our solar stations. We have solar and electrical stations, but the power needs are very small for the Bikeshare systems. And even in cases where we do have solar, and believe me, we have abundant sunshine in San Antonio, we have just, where possible, had an electrical backup just in case, and to not restrict the customer interface. Go ahead. Here's a chart. This was done after our 9 months, or at the end of the calendar year, and it shows the cumulative and monthly membership sales. The blue line indicates just the going up cumulative sales. Right now we're up to over 1,200 annual members, and we've sold approximately 6,100 day use passes. Go ahead. This chart we found not surprising, I'll say. It's a trip per week chart, and if you'll note kind of in the middle of the screen, that dip in usage corresponds to the weeks of July and August of last summer. We had one of the most brutally hot summers on record, and nonetheless, people were out there riding bikes. But you can see when the weather cooled off in the early fall, those numbers spiked again. And I think our summer is going to be like other people's winter in our northern neighbors part of the country. But we leave the bikes out all the time. Don't take them in August. Go ahead, please. I put this chart on here because it kind of gave us a coolness factor, if you will. Last October, this analysis was done, and San Antonio ranked among these other really cool cities in the whole world. And even though we're a big city, we suffer from an inferiority complex, I think, sometimes. So what I want to illustrate here is that San Antonio Bikeshare has put us on the map and given us some bragging rights. And basically what these numbers show is that on that particular day last October, San Antonio was the third most utilized. We had the most ridership going on percentage-wise for the number of bikes in our system at that one time. Pretty cool. Go ahead. So as a result of this emphasis on fitness and some other programs going on in the city, we actually made the men's fitness top 25 cities of being fit in the United States, and that is an amazing accomplishment. You can read on the cover of the magazine what will happen to your city if you adopt Bikeshare. It looks like you could have a great life, but truly it's added to this culture in San Antonio that we're not fat and lazy and not athletic. We actually are changing the culture here. The other big accomplishment we have bragging rights about is that this system is the first one in Texas. Go ahead. Here's another slide I just wanted to illustrate. We've won a number of awards already, but my point in showing you this list is to illustrate that bike sharing is recognized as an innovative amenity that makes a city cool, and recognition is the best form of validation. So this has, we think, enhanced our competitiveness with peer cities because it's impacted quality of life, and we've been looking at it both from a public health and environmental sustainability perspective, and that has given us reason to celebrate. Go ahead. New Frontiers, we are just about to embark on an expansion south of town along the Mission Trail, which is a beloved destination for cyclists already, and it will provide a new way for people to access the San Antonio missions. There's the Alamo in the center of the city, and then 4 additional historic missions that you can get to on a trail, both along the San Antonio River or along the street. And we're excited to use the Paul S. Sarbanes Transit and Parks Grant to fund this opportunity, but as was mentioned earlier, we have to come up with the funding for the bikes themselves. This grant is only going to be paying for the stations. Go ahead. I'm just going to touch real quickly on complementary programs. This was a wonderful game changer, as I mentioned earlier, but it really needed some ancillary support to help it be successful. And we were awarded bronze level bicycle friendly community status in 2011. And while the application process provided a baseline for metrics and highlighted areas where we needed improvement, the designation by the league added to the momentum and in a sense forced us to live up to certain standards. So we've used the league's 5 E's as a framework for an integrative program to help us figure out where to allocate those precious resources. Go ahead. Last September we passed a comprehensive bicycle master plan, and we've been beefing up bike parking and new sign prototypes. If you'll note in the larger photo on the left, we were able to add on to existing wayfinding in the downtown core, and we just stuck on those little iconic bee symbols. We had some reflective stickers made, and we got permission to stick those up, and you can see there's some cool places to go to. Go ahead. In the form of encouragement and education, we again have put new signage up aimed at both cyclists and motorists. We've been handing out safety equipment such as bike lights and helmets at community events. We've done a lot of mapping, both online and printed, and then we are trying to do an encouraging media campaign urging everyone to share the road. Because once again, remember, we're attempting to change culture here. This is a really big effort. Go ahead. We now have 2 laws on our local books that have the word bicycle in them and are serving as the basis for our education campaigns. The Safe Passing Ordinance stipulates giving vulnerable road users adequate passing space when conditions allow, and we have a bike light ordinance that lets cyclists know that they have a responsibility to be safe also by making sure that their safety equipment is properly functioning. Go ahead. A lot's been said about partnerships, and as we all know, they are key for the Bikeshare deployment. We've counted over 70 stakeholders and partners that we've involved, and keeping that many individuals and organizations engaged is challenging. But when the system launched, we had that built-in support, and which translated in many cases to new members, to advertisers, and also to financial backers. So just after our first year in operation, we can report that San Antonio bike sharing has been an unequivocal success. it has proved to be one of the game changers that has ostensibly influenced an increase in bike ridership overall, and it's given the city bragging rights. And it's a program that elected leaders are proud of. Go ahead. I'd like to wrap up and wish your city or organization every success in establishing a bike share system and hope that this information has been helpful. Best of luck to you, and again, thank you for all the collaborative work that's going on to help cities and organizations go forward with bike sharing. Thank you.
Thank you, Julia. We will now run through a few questions. We're getting short on time, so I'm not going to be able to have that many questions, but we'll see what we can do. I'm also put up a slide here so that if you have any more questions, you can always follow up later. But to start, have there been any programs that use electric assist bicycles in areas where there's more challenging terrain? RJ and Mauricio, are you familiar with any programs like that?
Yeah, sorry, we were muted. This is RJ. In San Francisco, they're going to be launching a 100 e-bike pilot program in, I think, in the fall of this year. And there is another university-based program in the southeast. I want to say in Chattanooga, or maybe Louisville, but I'm not sure. But I know there's a university bike program as well that's trying to use e-bikes. Again, these are small pilot projects, though.
One of our attendees said they believe it's in Knoxville, Tennessee.
Yes, Knoxville, sorry.
Quite all right. Is there any data that shows increased transit ridership due to bike share implementation?
Josh or Julia, would you like to take that on? We haven't come across that type of data, but I know, I mean, just from looking at things around here in DC, we have found that a lot of people use that bike share to commute for that last mile. Josh, do you have any more insight?
Yeah, I think simply put, they displace a number of metro trips, and I can tell you that our Metro Rail, I can tell you that Metro does not see us as a competitor. They actually see us as an alleviator. Our Metro system is maxed out during the peak of the peak in the morning and evening rush hour, and they actually see us as a wonderful complement to the service that they provide. But the surveys that we've done, our respondents, it's shown that a majority of the trips would have either been taken by walking or by Metro, if not for Capital Bike Share.
This is Julia, and while we have not measured a direct increase yet, we have purposefully placed a number of our stations very close to transit centers or bus stops, and we are definitely in partnership and constant communication with our partners at our Metropolitan Transit system. So in fact, they are building a multimodal big system in about a year, and they've already put funding aside to have their own bike share system at that transit center. So we're happy about that. They're presenting it all over the place for us many times, and we're getting wider exposure because of it.
Okay. Is a feasibility study always needed prior to issuing an RFP, or have any RFPs been successful without a preceding study?
I think, Josh, you can answer this one, actually.
I don't think it's a prerequisite. I'm actually of the opinion that you can do, and I think Julia touched upon this when she was talking about station siding. You can have an extensive amount of trip information, of commuting information, residential and commercial density, but at the end of the day, it really has to reflect what is actually on the ground. We know that this was going to be a transit system, and we knew that we were going to have people from our uptown and middle corridors and the sort of the peripheral corridors coming into downtown, because that's where the jobs are in the morning, and then vice versa at night. And that really has not only guided our decision-making process for the first 126 stations, but will continue to guide our decision-making process as we continue to expand. It really, a lot of it is just common sense, just knowing where people want to go, using not only bikes as a transit option, but also using our other existing transit platforms.
Well, my last question due to time is, are there issues with bike splits dropping off a bike on a trip and not finding a bike at that station later for their return trip?
I'll say it's a possibility. We haven't really had many complaints about that yet. However, we've tried to make it well known that you can, if you have a smartphone, you can check that in advance. Our system is designed also so that if you do get to a station and there aren't any bikes, or conversely, if you get to a station and it's full of bikes and there's nowhere to dock your bike in, you get an additional 15 minutes on your time free of charge that will allow you to get to the next closest station.
Capital Bikeshare uses different equipment than San Antonio. Again, we use PBSC equipment. And, like the B-Cycle equipment, if a member or user comes upon a full station, they have the ability to get another 15 free minutes so that they can find the nearest station with an empty dock. Unlike San Antonio, this is a reoccurring problem in the district because we have really a finite amount of supply and an ever-increasing amount of demand. And again, one of the great things about our stations is that you can continue to expand the existing ones, thereby not only saving tens of thousands of dollars and not having to procure another station, but you're also able to enhance the customer experience by adding just another 4 or 8 docks. And I'll just finish by saying we removed a very popular station today and placed it about 2 blocks south to expand the station by 8 docks because it was a problem from a operational perspective. The station was very empty in the morning because people were taking the bikes downtown and then would fill up at night. And so adding just 8 docks, I think, is going to go a long way in improving the customer experience for that particular station.
Thank you. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for discussion today. If we do not get to your question, we will be addressing all the submitted questions or trying to send them to our presenters and get some responses that we can post on our website. Once again, a recording and transcript of today's program, as well as the PDF copies of the slides, will be on our website in about a week at www.walkinginfo.org/webinars. Finally, I want to remind you that a very brief survey will appear once the webinar is ended. We appreciate you taking the moment to complete it. Thank you again to our speakers, RJ Eldridge, Mauricio Hernandez, Josh Moskowitz, and Julia Diana. And thank you all for attending today's TPIC Livable Communities webinar.